Bulletproof coffee, where you add the butter and the MCT oil and sometimes the cream, and you whip it all together, and it curbs your appetite. You don't feel like eating for a bunch of hours. And I think it was Dave Asprey that really brought it to light, and it became a huge mainstay, sort of staple within the ketogenic community. And it was interesting because it was something that definitely curbed appetite. So even people that were not doing a low carb diet were doing it. And then a lot of evidence started to come out about what are called cryomicrons, like when you actually liquefy things like butter, which I don't have a problem with butter at all. I eat a lot of it, but when you liquefy butter, it does certain things where it changes how it's absorbed through what are called chylomicrons. So with this, it's actually making and changing your serum triglycerides, and you can notice it in what's called an oral lipid test. And I talked to Mike Mutzel, he might know High Intensity Health on YouTube. We talked about this in an interview. It's kind of interesting where we both noticed, but now we're seeing Bulletproof coffee coming back, but it's sort of a different version. Now I'm gonna talk about what that is. I'm gonna tell you straight up. It's coffee with just MCT. Okay, but I'm going to explain why, because it has to do with some of the rise and influence of Ozempic and GLP-1 and how MCT and coffee might kind of work synergistically together with that. So I'll get into it. You want to hear how to use it. Below I put a link for free access to SuppCo, which is a supplement management app. Now for me, I manage and juggle a lot of different supplements, different times of the year. And I've tried using Google Docs, I've tried using all that, which works, but it's a giant pain in the rear. So this is a free app, at least it's free right now for people that are watching my videos, that allows you to manage it all and kind of see where your supplements are and also how they rank compared to other supplements. So if you've ever used things like Kayak to shop for maybe flights and things like that, you can find the best deals or whatever. Well, the SuppCo app allows you to do that with supplements, except it's able to rank quality, and it looks at all these kinds of things like rancidity and all this stuff, so it factors it in. And they're not married to any one brand. There's no bias at all. So if a brand starts to go down the toilet, it's gonna move down on their ranking system. So you can search for supplements, 500 different supplements as of right now, and growing. So you can also build your own stack. So you can save a stack for later, or you can view my stack. It just makes managing your supplement routine super easy. So that link down below, supp.co/Thomas. Again, SuppCo, so supp.co/Thomas. And again, it's still in its early stages, so you're able to get it for free. Doesn't mean it's gonna last forever, but while it's hot, you might wanna check it out. So that link is down below in the top line of the description. So we have to talk about two really interesting things that we've seen here. Okay, when we talk about what's called GLP-1, GLP-1 is a gut incretin, essentially a peptide that is released that actually modulates our glucose, but subsequently after that ends up controlling our appetite quite a bit. So we're seeing interesting things specifically with MCT oil. Check this out. There was a study published in Nutrients where in a breakfast situation, they gave humans either long chain fats, like saturated fats, or they gave them medium chain triglycerides, MCT oil. What they found is that the MCT actually delayed gastric emptying and lowered their food intake. What's wild is that MCT absorbs so fast. How would it delay gastric emptying? That's what's kind of flipping everything on its head. We've known MCT oil in the low carb world is good because it kind of gives you energy, but we've never really thought about it along with a standard breakfast that's not low carb. This is really fascinating. So what scientists are sort of speculating with this and looking at some of the mechanistic evidence is because MCT absorbs so fast, it absorbs directly into the portal vein, into the liver, and actually produces some ketones, even if you're not in a ketogenic state. And what these ketones do is they suddenly influence the brain and influence what's called PYY and neuropeptide Y. They influence these aspects of the brain to essentially make it so that we're not hungry. Now, the reason that they're influencing us to not be hungry is because it's kind of overriding us into a survival system that says, hey, we're producing ketones, you don't need to eat, everything's cool. So it slows down gastric emptying. And what happens when gastric emptying is slowed down, food is spending more time in the lower part of the small intestine, which subsequently triggers a release of GLP-1. This is super cool. Okay, so it's kind of the return of Bulletproof coffee, but in a super improvised way that's not adding the liquefied butter. Now, again, I don't think there's a problem with having butter. It's just when it's liquefied to a really hot temperature, you're literally changing the structure and you're making it so those carbon chains absorb differently and how they actually transfer through the gut with the chylomicrons. I don't think that it's like a terrible thing for someone that's super metabolically healthy, but both Mike Mutzel and I have both seen anecdotally our serum triglycerides in the short term with a lipid tolerance test go up. And that's not something that I just want to have happen all the time, even though it does control my appetite. So I'm finding, even personally now, just having Bulletproof coffee with just MCT oil and coffee, or what I love my Bulletproof tea, where I add MCT oil to tea and whip it up. It actually tastes really good. And then a little splash, sometimes a little splash of half and half to make it like a London fog. It's super good. Anyway, that curbs my appetite just as much without A, the added calories, and B, the potential problem. So save your butter for other things. Just don't liquefy it and emulsify it and blend it into a drink, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying it's terrible. I think it definitely works for people. No malice on Dave. That's not the idea here. I like his brand. I'm not about that. The simple solution is that I'm trying to find something simple and lower calorie and easy. And this is actually of benefit to Dave if more eyeballs get on Bulletproof, even though he's not the owner anymore and maybe he doesn't care. But what's really interesting too is we're seeing evidence now with both green tea and coffee that the polyphenols, the chlorogenic acid in coffee and the catechins in green tea, so whether you make it MCT green tea or MCT coffee, these have a massive influence on our overall GLP-1 response. So coffee, even if it's decaf, could have this effect. And green tea, even if it's decaf, because it's the catechins. Now, of course, the caffeine is going to help mobilize fat. That's going to certainly help the process overall. So what I'm encouraging people here is, hey, have this, maybe have it after your workout. Like get up in the morning, have a little bit of coffee, do your workout, and then maybe even have decaf or green tea with a little bit of MCT. Is it going to give you the sustained energy? Maybe not as much as if you had the butter in it, simply because the caloric intake is a little lower, but the satiety aspect is really, really potent. And that's what most of us are really after when we're looking at this whole grand scheme of things. Another sort of mad scientist thing that you can do, and this was published in the journal Clinical Nutrition, where they actually combine green tea extract with capsaicin, this is gonna sound wild, is actually adding a little bit of spice to your coffee or to your tea, like a little bit of chili pepper. It sounds wild, and it may or may not actually, I tried it with coffee, I've never tried it with tea, adding just some chili powder to it, because they have Mexican hot chocolate where it's kind of spicy. I kind of what if we made a Mexican coffee or whatever that would be called? And it was pretty darn good, to be honest. If you put a little Lakanto, monk fruit sweetener or something in it, I don't know, kind of good. Or if you put a little bit of allulose or something like that, which kind of adds to the GLP-1 effect anyway, kind of tastes good. It's kind of sweet and spicy and you get that coffee taste. But what we've seen with the capsaicin is it actually influences our overall appetite because a TRPV1 receptor. So essentially you have a system where it registers something spicy and that influences GLP-1. You could also have a small increase in metabolic rate, but that's nothing to really write home about. So interesting, a spicy MCT coffee. Sounds like I'm being total mad scientist here, and I kind of am, but hey, we're always trying to find something that's gonna curb the appetite, and it might be worth a shot just based upon the compilation of research that we can put together. And I'll give you my own anecdotal experience, which has been extremely positive. So as always, don't forget to subscribe as well and drop a comment for the algorithm. I'll see you tomorrow.